Good morning, Sir Maarten. What's cooking? It has been about 2 weeks that I was off the airwaves on Facebook. And the reason for that was, sometimes you don't want to say things that might hamper any sort of formation. I am not directly involved in it, but very often, in St. Maarten, we have a lot of people that would love to find an excuse, throw blame, to ensure that something doesn't happen or does happen. That's unfortunately the world we live in, and it's something we will have to work with. Now, I decided today I was going to touch a few topics. One of them was the one that last week, I believe it was, my good friend Mixie put out a post on Facebook that caught my attention because it's not the first time that this was happening. I can recall it happening at the Regina School, where a young man, because he had locks, because he was a Rastafarian, was basically put out of school, and after court cases, the school lost basically, and the young man had to go back to school. But because we are a very vindictive society also, even though we go to church every Sunday, we fall down on our knees and we pray and we scream hallelujah, we are as vindictive as can be. We are also hypocrites. When it's convenient, we are all in the bandwagon. When it's not convenient, we swinging the sword of Damascus. That's unfortunately the St. Maarten we are. No more, no less. But let's talk about hair. Does hair make you smarter? I see we have a doctor online, so maybe the doctor can give us the latest results where too long hair or too puffy a hair makes you dumber and that you can't study. Because it cannot be that because someone is wearing a puff, they're not learning good enough. Or because somebody has hair an inch too long, they're not learning good enough. I know we want to talk about grooming and how we should groom our kids and how they should come to school, etc., etc. And I understand that and I respect that. But you do that in a responsible manner, in a fair manner, not in a pick and choose manner. And somebody gonna say, how you mean with the picking and choosing? Ask the parents at the various schools what's really happening. If you tell me that cornrows are okay in a school, then what's the issue with an afro that's an inch high? What's the issue? Look, we're not talking about the 70s when kids went to school with afros this big. I'm not talking about that. Look, I don't believe in a young man going to school with an afro picking hair. That's nonsense. But that he has an afro an inch high, what's wrong with that? That is groomed. We have people. I went to school. I used to have a ponytail. What's the issue? I studied just as good. I mean, we are telling the children, I don't want you to seek your own identity. You will take the identity that we are giving you in this school. But if the identity in the school is that of an oppressor, then you have a problem. And then you go and teach Black History Month. But they may not have an afro higher or an inch down. I mean, come on, man. You see what I just told you about hypocrisy and those type of things? This is exactly what it is. Because it makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. That children have to be groomed, I agree with you. I am not going to tell you that. But we say one thing and we do a different thing. Because the same schools out there selling chubbies and sweets and all kind of craziness, while most of the kids become diabetic very young. But that's not important because they're making money with it. You see the hypocrisy? Schools are learning institutions. They are development institutions for children. That's where they develop. And yes, you want to guide them. but guide them properly. Guide them properly. And very often it is better you know the child and you understand the child than you constantly fight the child and challenge the child, because he's going to resist. He or she are going to resist. And instead of you getting a student, you're getting a rebel. And this time, don't say it's a rebel without a cause. It is a rebel with a cause, because they are standing for their identity. And we got to be careful when we say that your hair can't be in a puff, your hair can't be longer than so much, your hair must be in a bun or a braid. You know, where do we stop? Where do we stop? Is a young man allowed to have a beard? Or is that too considered ungroomed? You see, because the teachers, they're walking around with beard, long hair, and all kind of stupidness. But that's not an issue. We need to understand the culture we're in. We are a very multinational island. 120 something nationalities. We all come with our cultures. And yes, I agree, you try your utmost to guide it as fair as possible. Because if you like it or not, there are students living in St. Maarten that have religious beliefs of how they must dress and how they must not dress. And there were, because of all the tensions and the terrorism and all kind of things, you can't wear a face mask or you can't wear a tully. But again, not that I agree with it, but I understand it. But we are going too far when we tell a child that is 13, 14, 15, in his puberteens, oh, your hair is no good, or this is no good, or listen, I agree, it's not a fashion show. And yes, we have a lot of fashionistas. And for God's sakes, we have some of them that only want to take pictures instead of paying people. But that doesn't make it right. That you teach children to dislike the system, because that's what they're doing. They're going to turn against the system. You see the amount of school fights we have? Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. And please don't tell me here did that. Maybe the lack of guidance did that. Ain't trying to blame right now. But I think we have to be a little more careful with the way we treat children when it comes to their appearance. You don't know the struggles their parents are going through. You set rules on school uniforms. School uniforms are unpayable in this country, man. People with good salaries cry when they come out of the pennies or the others. They cry because of the expenses. Every year when school starts, parents struggling to make school fees and to buy uniforms and shoes. Because even the shoes gotta be black, no stripes in them, no this. And the socks gotta be from school. Who the hell looking at shoes and socks now? I mean, come on. Yes, I understand you would want to identify the child, but please don't tell me identify him by the shoes. I can understand the pants and shirt, the skirt and shirt. I understand that. But how far do we want to go? If you can't afford it, if the children can't afford it, I understand that we look for alternatives. But the way we are doing things is not the way to go. Let private schools behave that way. But all of you, all foundations and so, they're taking money from government so they can make sure that they can pay teachers to teach, then do just that. Teach. Stop this stupidity about here, this, uniform, that. Come on. Come on. Let that for the rich schools. Why do you think certain parents put their children in private schools and bend over backwards to pay for it? Because the child is learning better. The environment is a little different. We need to wake up and smell the aroma. The minister, I don't even waste my time anymore discussing education with him. He has been the biggest failure in all my years looking at education ministers and commissioners. And we have had some failures. But this one tops it all. He has no clue what we're talking about. But again, like I said, if you're taking government money, maybe it's time for government to set the rules on hairstyles. And if you don't agree with the government rule, then don't take their damn money. Don't take their money. See how long you have a job. Because this is what it's about. This is a joke that we waste so much time on hair and all kind of things. But when children are being molested, everybody mute. And those that know what I'm talking about know exactly where this message is going to end up just now. The financial issues of country St. Maarten. You know, the impression was created that the treasury of St. Maarten was left with 90 million guilders surplus. The best there ever was. I want to thank the Prime Minister for coming out and talking about it and saying, no, there is no 90 million surplus. There was a loan of 69 million, I believe, that the government took. They got permission to take it. And that money is already allocated to projects and programs. That's what it was taken for. And then there was a discussion about a surplus of 22, 23 million. And the government says, no, there is no 22, 23 million. CFT is talking BS. It's 1 million. That's what stayed over after the amended budget 2023. The question is, was that budget approved by the CFT? Because if it was, then the CFT talking nonsense. But if it was not approved by the CFT, then I understand the CFT's position, because if you take budget 2023, then yes, there was a surplus of about 23 million. And that surplus was taken up in budget 2023, amended, where 1 million remained. This is what needs to be clarified, because to throw out a statement that 90 million was left, there was no 90 million left. There was nothing left, actually. I doubt even the million was left. But now, as soon as all this tralala passed on, suddenly now we get other things that start to fly up. AOV, the AOV fund, if we continue in the pace we are going right now, will be bankrupt by 2029, 5 years from today. Why? Because what's coming in versus what's going out isn't equal anymore. We are putting out more money than we are really getting in. That means the working force is not big enough to pay for those that are receiving a stipend. I'm not going to call it a pension, because it is not a pension. Pension means you pay into it and you get back out of it. AOV is not a pension, because even if you don't pay into it, as long as you've been on the island legally, you have a right to AOV. And the amount that you get is based on the amount of years that you have been on the island, either consecutively or added up. So again, this is going to become a very serious problem, because this is going to now determine what happens with the AOV premium. Does it go up? Or do we restructure AOV in such a way that we're going to make sure that those that are entitled to get something, and I'm using the word very carefully, entitled to get something, will get it at 65? Because entitlement doesn't exist in a pension. If you didn't pay in, you can't get nothing. If you don't live here, you shouldn't be getting anything. If it is a pension that you paid into, you have all rights. You can live in Timbuktu and you will get your pension. But if you did not put in, or if you don't live here, or if you had put in, but you don't live here anymore, that needs to be reviewed. This is something that SZV has been asking the government for quite a while to do. But everybody keeps ducking it because it's one of these sour pills. Just like paying for garbage or paying for sewage. All the laws are ready. But this country, we don't pay for garbage collection. We don't pay for sewage collection because nobody wants to lose a vote. But we argue about it every day. We talk about it. I talk about it. Others talk about it. How the shit water running here and there and there. But if you don't pay for it, government eventually do not much, because they ain't got no money. They just simply don't have it. You see, these are the problems that we need to start understanding what we are going to face as we go on. How healthy is the financial situation of this country is not known. It's not clear. Well, it isn't clear for me for sure. So again, when you look at TLM and you see what's happening at TLM, you can only cry. That TLM needs to restructure. I wholeheartedly agree. I agree. Artificial intelligence is taking over a lot of things. But to tell me that from the 126 people, 68 are going to be held and 58 will get a walking ticket with a payment plan. And from the 68, 18 gets a job, no, off the bat, and 50 have to apply. And if the job looks equal, yeah, you get it. No, it doesn't work so. Yeah, you don't get it. Because anybody can apply for that job. It can't be that TLM is hiring and it's only for internal hires to take place. Because it's a government-owned company. And everybody have a right to apply. TLM is a NAMLOs of a notes hub. It's owned 100% by the government of Maarten. So it cannot be so that other people are excluded from applying. If you're going to do replacements inside, then the 50 don't have to apply. Put them in the damn positions. But they are using the word they must apply. And if they gotta apply, then anybody should be able to apply for the position. Otherwise, take those two words, corporate governance, and shove them up where you know what don't shine. Because this is crazy. This game is being played, and this government, the Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs, and the Minister of Labour, Minister Omar Otley, are directly involved in sanctioning this, I understand. And if that is true, then some of those people should start holding them accountable. You know why? Because they had the SOB report. They knew what was wrong. And yet, with all this restructuring, nothing happening at the top. The top is what put TLM in this position, not the building blocks of TLM. But yeah, in Parliament, all they do is blah, 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 blah. For 2 years, I have been asked in Parliament to deal with this matter head on. And if it means get rid of management, then do so. I am not promoting to fire anybody. But if we have a problem of this magnitude, where you are nearly sending home 50% of your employees, it cannot be so that there is no change manager in TLM to handle this. Because SOB said, what's happening there cannot continue. Or are they preparing TLM for a sellout? So another company can come in and buy it out, like NTS or something like that, that's basically doing all the work in there with the whole transition going over. Or maybe if that's the intention, then come out and say so. Why do you see the shirt I have on? Haters. Because that's how I feel. The government is dealing with its people. They're hating on these people. People have a right to work. They have that right. You cannot just take it from them because of a political agenda. You have to govern the country. You're not governing the country, you're destroying it. First there was the airport ransacking locals left, right, and center and bringing in foreigners. That's what they were doing. And you sanction it. Now TLM is going to take out 58 people. People that build that company. And you're sanctioning it. But you're working for us. You people are so damn crazy that it ain't funny no more. I think Dow was right, when he sang the song. We need a crazy house. Oh yeah, we need a crazy house. He saw the future. He saw you all coming. The screening law. Who really decides? Every election, there's a whole debate about the screening law and who truly decides who will be a minister. And the role of the ministers being appointed by a national decree automatically starts to speak on the democracy in this country, because it means the governor is involved, because the governor has to co-sign every national decree. Not a ministerial decree, but a national decree. The governor must co-sign. The governor represents the king. We are autonomous. There's no breach of a charter document or a charter law. So why is it that when we appoint our ministers, they're subject to a screening? Because that's where the problem starts, the screening. The screening is something that we have to be cautious with, because you have to ask yourself, where did the screening come from? 2010, the first set of ministers, were they screened? Who did that? How did they do that? And the answer is no. They were not screened according to me. And you know the funny part is, when did the screening law really come? Let me give you a little history, because it's important for you all to understand how it works in this country. 2012, they brought in the BOP, the TBO boys, and they needed to change the law, the BOP law. 2014, Theodore Heiliger won the elections, basically. He was to become the prime minister. Out of the blues, the governor was instructed to pack up the appointments until they could check those that were becoming ministers. Our history? Let me give you a little history. That's what happened. So then suddenly they rustle a law together. We had the VDSM and the prosecutor general, everybody gets involved. And that law prevented Theodore Heiliger from becoming prime minister. And as it moved on, in that law, in that LB, it said Sir Maarten gets a chance until the next election to prepare their own screening laws. Great. So, which they did. So in 2016, when the next elections came around, Sir Maarten had a screening law. And that is like the integrity of the ministers, what they have to adhere to, etc., etc. And these things was that the in that new law, it would be that the VDSM and the Prosecutor General had no rights to be involved in the screening, because they are not part of checking the ministers. Again, we have something we call trias politicas. Government, so ministers and all that, parliament, the legislative branch, and the justice branch. Now, when you look at how this all playing out now, because you gotta fast forward, You have to fast forward and look at how this goes. The governor, his role is to sign the national decree. All this about appointing formateurs and informateurs is a joke. It's a complete joke. That is the job of the politicians. If this was etched in stone, then the king would have appointed the formateurs and informateurs in Holland too. Doesn't. Wilders and them appointed the informateurs in the Netherlands. Because the political party said they didn't want nothing to do with the governor because he screwed, the king, he screwed up the Rutte 3 and 4 cabinet with his nonsense. So here now we get a governor that sets a bunch of rules for the informateurs to go and deal with. One, asking people and organizations if they believe this government is okay. But then why the hell we voted? Why did we vote? Democracy seems not to exist. It just ain't existing. Now this is a very dangerous trend we are on right now. Because at the end of the day, we got to continue looking at what is allowed and what's not allowed. Now the governor, I understood, told the formateur he will not sign any candidate, minister, who has a red flag. And I said, okay, this is getting interesting. So what's a red flag? He waving one? He waving the DP red flag? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it that he owe taxes and he got to first pay taxes and then he'll appoint him? Or is it that the prosecutor's office said, no, we're busy investigating him, or we planning to investigate him for whatever crime we're going to make up that he do? Or is it that the VDSM says, well, we have him linked to international terrorism, etc., etc., whatever. Because they did a deep dive on the candidate. Now, it gets interesting the next week. So you did these deep dives. The candidate is told, there's a red flag. Okay, can I see it, please? What is the issue? No, we can't show you nothing. Sorry, excuse me? No, we can't show you nothing. They said that it's a problem, so we ain't doing nothing. Now here goes the governor, because this is the problem. The governor and the formateur see this information. This is confidential information from the candidate, but the candidate may not see it. The governor says, I ain't signing the LB because there's a red flag. No, the governor has 4 reasons to refuse signing an LB. 4. 1, it's in contradiction with the statute. Having a reason that I suspect you of something. Not that you're guilty. Listen carefully. I suspect you of something. No place in the statute covers that. An international regulation, so a treaty, it's in conflict with a treaty, or a kingdom act, or a general measure of government administration. It's a regs. Kingdom law, kingdom act. You do something that can go through. Now, mind you, I'm going to come back to these things because I'm going to put it in perspective for you. Or, with interest, the care or safeguarding in St. Maarten, which is actually a kingdom matter taken up in the statute in Article 43 or 44, I believe. That if we can't guarantee safety, the kingdom steps in. If we can't guarantee human rights, the kingdom steps in. It didn't say if we can't guarantee that somebody is not a criminal, because he is not. He is suspected of having committed a crime. He has not been convicted. Like, for example, Mark Rutte was, and Geert Wilders were. But yet they are ministers. One was a prime minister for 11 years. The other one will become the prime minister in the next few months. So the governor, if he don't want to sign it, has to send it up to the Netherlands. He can't sit on it here in his office and hide it. It has to go to the Council of State. Raad van State, sorry, in the Netherlands, so that they can review it and make a decision. It will be the first time in history in Maarten that this will happen. But maybe it's time for it to happen, because we cannot continue doing things the wrong way and then say, yeah, but that's habit. We're doing that for 12 years already, 14 years. What we get down for? So if somebody was raping a child for 14 years, we should continue allowing him to do it because it's habit? Think, people. Wake up. Stop being a fool. Stop being led on a chain to water. Loosen the chain and find your water. The rights of people are trampled on using a screening law. But it's going to get nicer, because the national order on the integrity of ministers is basically what should have been used for screening. And you can make an adjustment to that national ordinance on the integrity of ministers. This law is hardly even talked about or used or looked at when screening. Basically, when screening, it is what a VDSM says and what a prosecutor's office say. That will decide if you pass in, yes or no. That's it. All the other nonsense about what you own and the way you don't own, that's after the fact. And when you finish minister, they come back to see if you're thief or not. That's what that's for. No more, no less. But the problem is this. If you use the integrity ordinance for ministers, you will realize that that is a very fair, direct manner of screening a minister, taking note of assets, outstanding taxes, and family relations and all those type of things. Look, the Minister of Justice and the Prime Minister have a role in that screening. But there's no direct role for the prosecutor, only via the Minister of Justice and the VDSM. Now, what happened some time ago? 2020, you all can remember that year? In 2020, we had a problem with a minister, Minister Otley. So Otley couldn't pass screening for, what was it exactly? We planning to investigate / charging. I want to use the word planning, because there wasn't an investigation really going on, nor was he charged. His lawyer immediately, because the VDSM had put something in writing, I think it was, or the prosecutor's office, I'm not sure. Immediately, his lawyer wrote to the Committee of Supervision for the VDSM. And when she did that, there was a whole discussion about the eligibility of the VDSM doing any sort of antecedenten onderzoek or screening or whatever. They're not allowed. And then he said to me, what do you mean they're not allowed? Because the laws that govern the VDSM don't allow them to screen a minister. Because a minister doesn't hold a confidentiality position, a trust position, a vertrouwensfunctie, as it is defined in our laws. But who cares? We go still do it. Well, MP Otley, at that point in time, because he was an MP, fought this. And in November of 2020, the Committee of Supervision that oversees the VDSM made a stunning revelation. One, the VDSM is not legally allowed to screen any minister. 2, Minister Otley cannot appeal the decision because the decision is illegal. There's no basis for that decision. This was signed off by Justice Holter. All right? Justice, a judge. You think the governor gives a shit? You think this governor gives a shit? No, they don't. Because if they do, there would be no VDSM screening right now. Because the law didn't change. And if the law changed, please publish it. Then I will apologize. But I know the law didn't change to my knowledge. All my reviews, I can't find that change. The VDSM may not do screening. They may not. The public prosecutor, he can tell the justice minister, hey, this is what I saw, or this is what there is. Again, the presumption of innocent until proven guilty doesn't work. It just don't work in this country. But there were more things in the Otley verdict. And one of them was that there was a grave wrongdoing to MP Otley, because when they told him as candidate minister, he could not be sworn in or given the oath of minister because of an investigation, he was not allowed to know what he was being investigated for. So you're telling him no, and he must believe in those that said what they're doing. We have had enough prosecutors that went to jail for fraud and corruption. We have had enough. Here, we just run them. We send them back to Holland. Doesn't mean they're innocent. In Holland, a lot of them lost their jobs too. We even have a case that I'm going to speak about just now. In absolute power, corrupts absolutely. And some people get very upset with me, what I'm going to say. But you know what? My show isn't to please anybody. It's to inform everybody. At the end of the day, I think we need to look at the process of screening. For my part, remove it altogether. Use the integrity LB of ministers, of what a minister should be, and move on. We set rules and regulations on ourselves that other places in our kingdom or in the world, because of treaties, cannot be applied. We have taken the crab in the bucket mentality and placed it in our laws and believe that makes us better. No, that makes us look like damn fools in the public's eye, especially in the international market. But then again, hey, if the photo op is there, why not take it? That's how we have worked too often. And instead of us changing what's wrong to start moving forward on a positive note, I think that we prefer to keep dragging others through the mud because somebody said this or somebody said that, or because the prosecutor's office is just an entity. And the aspect of not because they were given the right to investigate you, have you arrested, prosecute you, means that they are right always. They are not. Court cases show that. They are not always right. But that you destroy people in the process because of that. Because the innocence until proven guilty is thrown out the window. You are destroying your people instead of working the law the way it was meant to be. No entity is above the other in trias politicas. They're not a triangle, they're a straight line. And as long as we don't understand that, we will always be the jackass in the group. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When I decided to speak on this matter, I thought of this integrity matter that was used to inform prospect candidates who received a fine and community service for being involved in a bribe scandal as a commissioner back in Curacao, I believe in 2003, some 20 plus years ago. Big and broad was in the newspaper. I think it was even on the first page, but maybe wrong. Decision stands, candidate minister doesn't pass integrity screening. Now mind you, your police record for public is wiped clean after 5 years. After you do your time, you know, after 5 years, you will get your conduct of good behavior. You can get it again after 5 years. According to me, that's how the law states. This good gentleman had community service. No jail time, no nothing. Community service. Is told 21 years later, no, but you can't become a minister because you did so and so and so 21 years ago. Okay. But the screening law don't say that. So how does this work? Now, it's happening in Curacao too, so it's interesting to see how this is going to play out, because the good gentleman decided he's taking it to the appellate courts. And after the appellate courts, it will go to Holland if he loses there too. Which I believe he will. Because it's one court, first, and appeal, they cover for each other. So I believe he will lose in Curacao. But at Supreme, it's different because they look at it from a different angle and there's no connection to anything. Because the aspect of impartiality in our court system does not exist. I can attest to that personally. So all those that feel, oh God, how can he say that? How can he say that the integrity of the courts, the integrity of the courts ain't good? We all know it ain't good. And we are pretending that it's still good. But it's not. But that's life. If I have to pay for it for what I'm saying, I'm okay with that. But nobody's going to shut me down for saying what I believe is truly happening in this country. Again, you gotta remember what I told you just now about the Theo Heiliger story. And then remember what I told you about the Otley story. Because of the Otley story and the write-up that came in 2020, November, telling us that VDSM had no right, absolutely no right, nor role to screen any minister, any candidate minister, because the VDSM law doesn't allow such. You would want to believe that in 2024, we're not confronted with this same thing again. Because that law to change had to come to Parliament. It couldn't just change by the governor or by the government. It had to come to Parliament. It did not come. So again, maybe we are signing off LBAs or blocking LBAs based on false information. Because if it's not legal, you can't use it. And if you do use it, it is false. Now, using false information to do things is not uncommon. I was accused of it too. That's why they sentenced me on, that I used information wrongly, even though I was told to do it that way. Because it was not the truth, it was false. And for that, they told me I got to go to jail. That's what the courts told me. And I appealed my sentence, and then appellate said, no, we agree with what he said. And in 2 pages, and now it's gone to the Netherlands. But you know what was interesting? A judge, a chief judge in the Netherlands, in The Hague to be very specific, took 43 cases from the first instance. I want to believe these cases were discussed in court, the people had their day, but the judges didn't come to a verdict. The Chief Justice came to a verdict. He wrote the verdict, and give it to the people. Tell them that's it. So the other judges didn't even know what was going on. This came to the attention of the courts. And the chief judge was immediately suspended. You hear the word I use? Suspended. Now mind you, people are punished, right or wrong, at this point in time is not the discussion. The process is the discussion. And when you have absolute power and you decide to manipulate the process, like I was so-called accused, I had more power than the governor and the ministers and everybody when I gave the contract for the landfill to Robelt and Sons. I gave an advice, but I was convicted for giving it to them, fixing it, making the governor put a gun to your head and tell him, sign this now. Told the ministers, told my SG Lewis Brown, sign it now. Otherwise something will happen to all you. Because that's what I'm accused of. But here you have a chief judge who has this power, this absolute power, because his signature is on the verdict. And 43 people's lives are taken for a ride. But he's suspended. He's not removed. No, he's just suspended. You know, when they punish politicians here, you know what they always use? You have an exemplary position. I agree. As a politician, I agree. Civil servant, yeah, exemplary position here. They don't pay for it, but okay. So does a judge. So does a judge. Worse yet, he determines your fate. But he is suspending. He's just suspended. And he doesn't even give a reason other than he was saving the country money. If this is the new norm, because a judge like that will end up down in the Caribbean very easy. When they want to move the shame and scandal, they send them down here. These are the things we got to be careful with. Very careful. Because what's good for the goose got to be good for the gander. But again, like I said, I just want to show you how things go in the Netherlands and how things go here. Here there are no questions asked. Gone. Up there, oh man, everybody becomes everybody's savior. I'm just saying this to show you all that when you hear certain things, don't believe everything you hear. There's always an agenda. There's always an agenda to be accomplished. And sometimes, unfortunately sometimes, it is our own people that treat children with their hair issues. It's our own people. It is our own politicians that destroy our people in companies. Allow them to be fired. Allow this to happen. Allow that to happen. It is our own people, like a governor, who is trying to manipulate a government, who calls in unions to talk about problems. Since when the governor became a mediator? His partners are ministers, not you. If you call in the union, call in everybody. But don't have that type of thing, because I hope you call in the union from TLM now and tell them, listen, let's see how we're going to fix this thing here with all these people getting fired. I hope you do that too. But I don't expect you to do that. But like I said, it is so funny that we are telling ministers to be, if there's a red flag, you can become a minister. I want to put my hand in the fire that Christopher Emmanuel will have a red flag, because they're telling him he was under investigation. They didn't press charges. They didn't even ask the court's permission to prosecute him. But this is going on already for quite some time. Because that's the norm. Normally, there's a time span from investigation to prosecution. That nonsense doesn't exist here in Maarten either. We went through a case for 13 years. So please. And then I was acquitted totally by the Supreme Court. But hey, c'est la vie de ça. I just hope that, this government starts to look at some other things. Instead of wasting a lot of your resources and time on white collar crime, start to look at the blue collar crime. Because the damage that's being done right now with armed robberies, etc., on businesses, on tourists, on homes, is going to have a very, very negative spin-off on the economy of this country. Do not fool yourself. People come here by boat, commit crimes, and move out. And then we talk about border control, and we have agreements. Agreements to do what exactly? Scratch your passport and fill it well? Or patrol the waters? And ensure that those fellows that are coming in by boat make the break-ins, jump on a boat and go back home with the riches of this country. Please, tell me. Because I don't know anymore. I honestly don't know anymore. I hope that the incoming Minister of Education, hopefully Christopher Emmanuel, otherwise whomever, takes public education and makes it a foundation so that it can be managed properly by an organization that understands really what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, and that funding will be given to the foundation like how it's given to all the others, and government is hands off. Put your policy in place and move on. I think we should look at NEPA and the university a little different and ensure that scholarships, full scholarships, are given there, like how we give it to those that leave the island. Because if I decide to stay and study at the University of St. Maarten, but I would like an apartment, just like I would have gotten one if I'd gone to Tallahassee, why can't I get that scholarship here too? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that by NEPA? Why do we treat our own different? Why are we doing so-called cost savings? The development, I spoke about it earlier, the development of a child, of a young adult, needs to happen. We need to guide that. That's what it's all about. And I hope that we learn to deal with our own financial situations. And we pay for what we use, and we use for what we pay. No more, no less. The governor, he will get some more attention from me as we go along. I think the governor needs to understand his role. You're not the savior. You will never be the savior. Your job is clearly defined. So just do that. We ain't asking no more than that. I am one of them that don't believe that we should have a governor overseeing us on behalf of the king. I believe we should have somebody appointed by the government of St. Maarten to oversee the integrity, the correct maneuvering, if that's what they want to call it. I can understand that. But I don't think it needs to be done through the Netherlands, so that when they tell you what to do, you do that. Otherwise, crap a smoky pipe and you're gone. They'll find a reason. Please share my podcast and also like and subscribe to my YouTube page. It has been 2 weeks since I was back. I want to leave with this message. No matter which government sits, my party or not, if you do wrong, the bunk's gonna call you out. Take care. Have a great week ahead and stay safe, everyone.